Hello and welcome to our Luft channel for our lesson 8 in Python programming language for beginners. So in this lesson I want to show you something special compared to the previous ones because there is nothing better, I believe, than a project to make sure you have understood everything properly from the previous lessons. So in this lesson, at least at the first part of it, I will start showing you how you can develop a program where players can play Tic Tac Toe. I bet you already know the game. Actually, everybody knows the game. We will develop the program by using console graphics. We have not learned real graphics yet, but stay tuned because in the following lessons we will do so. So let's start. First of all, we need to write a code where we will design the board. So I've put a comment there, designing the board. I will put comments in every part so we can have a better control of what we are doing in every part of the program. So this seems to be different from the things we have learned until now. So we use a variable called board, and something we have not learned yet is lists in Python, but don't worry about that because we will do a lot of lists in the following lessons. The only thing that you should care about right now is the reason we're using an empty list there. So actually, if you want to declare a list variable in Python, you use that symbol, and you can put sublists inside a main list. And considering that when you play tic-tac-toe, you have 9 empty squares at the beginning of the game. So actually, we use 3 sublists for every row, and every position of the list is initialized with a space character, which all we want is to show that right now that square is empty. So imagine actually that you have a board to play tic-tac-toe at the beginning, so it's an empty board. So actually you have 9 empty squares. So that's what we have done right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 empty squares, separated with a comma every time. So this is our board, and now we want to design the board by using console graphics. And when you design something by using console graphics, you need to use a lot of print commands. So now, first of all, we will play one another, one after the other one. So the first player uses O, and the second player uses X in tic-tac-toe. So let's say that we initialize the player value with O, and then we will draw the board. So we'll use many print commands. So actually the result we want to accomplish is this one. So as you can see, that print is that part of the output, and then we have put some console graphics for the vertical lines. We have used some pointers because that I have to explain now. When you use lists in Python, the first position is considered to be the 0 position. So if you refer, for example, to the first line, this one, then this is not line 1, it's line 0. So the second line is line 1 and the third line is line 2. Respectively, where the same happens with the columns. The first column is column 0, the second column is column 1, and the third column is column 2. So we have put some string characters and we have used number pointers as strings to the lines and to the columns so that we can help later the player to specify where exactly he wants to put the marker. So, for example, this square, this empty square, is board 0, 0 because it is in row 0, column 0. Then a vertical separator, and then this empty square, which is 0, 1. Then this empty square, which is 0, 2, etc. So then we use another print with separated dashes to insert a new line, and then again the first square is 1, 0, the square in the middle is 1, 1, where there's no surprise with that. The third square in the second row is 1, 2, blah blah blah. So this is our board. We will play the game, which is designed in console graphics. Now you can see the whole board. Okay? So now, one thing very important about Tic Tac Toe is that at the worst scenario, we will have 9 rounds, because if you play 9 times and then there's another player to play, even if we have a winning case or not, you have nowhere else to put the marker. So reasonably the game ends. So you cannot have more than 9 turns. This is the reason why everything now will be put in a 4i in range 9, because we have maximum 9 rounds. So all those prints for the console graphics, you can mark them all like a text, and you can press the tab button to put the whole code inside the for loop structure. Because in every new round you need to know the situation of the board at the moment, at that specific moment. So moving on to the game, we will put this part of coding. And why do we insert that code? Because we want to make sure that when player X in, for example, round 1, then in round 2 player O plays. So we use an if-else inside the for loop, which says if it was X, the player who played right now, then change the order by putting O as the player who plays that round. Else, do the other way around. So we have done this. Then we need to make to ask first of all from the player to put a marker somewhere. So the player puts an X or an O into an empty square. But we need to make a validation check, because first of all, every time the player plays has to specify the row number and the column number that he wants to play. So the marker is put inside the board by the combination of the row number and the column number. So considering that we have 3 rows and 3 columns, that means that there is a restriction of numbers I can use for row variable and for column variable. And more specifically, you cannot use numbers lower than 0 or greater than 2. So we start a new section of our program. I will copy that comment to put it right there. We're still, of course, inside the for loop function. And now we start the validation check while the player plays. First of all, before starting the validation, we need every time to show on the screen whose player's turn is. So we use a print and we type player, player, plays. So that player can be either X or O. That's what we have already declared. So now, because we want to do a validation, remember the previous lessons, we will use a while loop structure. And more specifically, we will type while true. So while true means that while everything inside the while structure actually happens, at least one of those that will follow inside the loop, then while will keep on running and relooping and relooping. So now we're asking the user to type a row number and then a column number. So the first thing we need to make sure is that the player will insert a valid number for row and column as well. So we need to use a validation check for both rows and columns. That's why we will use that part of the code. I will copy paste it right now. There it is. So if the row is lower than 0 or the row is greater than 2, then print a message that says you're out of bounds, type a value between 0 and 2 so that you can help the player understand what he has typed wrong. And then you use continue because you want to ignore the rest of the code and you want to run the while loop again from the beginning. Elif, and you do exactly the same thing you've done with the rows, you do exactly the same thing with the columns. Again, if the user types a value for column which is lower than 0 or greater than 2, then again we need to show the message you're out of bounds, type a value between 0 and 2. And there is one more case we need to check. The case of a non-free square, because if the square is already captured, then a message must be shown to the player to pick another square which is actually empty at the moment. So we need to type that part of code to make sure that the square is empty. So it's very easy to understand what that code says. If the pointers for row and column the player has given are not equal to an empty square, then a pick an empty square message must be shown on the screen. So now we can put an else case, which means that nothing of the above has occurred. So now the marker of the player, which I remind you is X or O, will be assigned to the board, so will be put inside the board, and in that case while loop will break because we need to move on to the next round inside for. So let's run the program until now and see what results we have got. I will maximize the window a little bit. So we're running the program. There is the board at the beginning and says player X plays. Very well. Let's say I use the X marker. So type a row number. Let's say I type 1, which is a valid number. But for column, I type 5, which is not a valid column number. And while works correctly because it says you're out of bounds, type a value between 0 and 2. So again, I need to specify where I will put my marker. So let's say now that I choose 1, 1, and there it is. Marker X has been put in the middle of the board, which is absolutely correct. And now it says player O plays. So type a row number. Let's say that I type exactly the same, 1, 1. Pick an empty square. So again, while works perfectly. So let's say now that I type row number 2, column number 0, and there is the marker of player 0. So until now we have managed many things. We have our board. We have numbered. We have number pointers for every row and every column to help the players. We have a player change correctly every round. We have specified the number of rounds, which are 9, and we have a great validation check every time every player plays, where we check if he or she puts the marker inside or outside the bounds of the board, and if he or she picks an empty or captured square. So this is the first part of our program. Stay tuned because in lesson 9 I will show you the rest and we will finish the Tic Tac Toe project and we will be ready to play the game. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.